Dr. Lucas, you are a Jungian analyst, and from what I hear, the Jungian school as a whole has failed to find any past life material in the unconscious. Past life residues were first discovered by hypnotherapists in the 70s, and later rediscovered by Stanislav Grof a decade later in his holotropic breathwork and LSD therapy. In other words, this is not a new discovery for other psychological schools. How did you, as a Jungian, discover past life residues in the unconscious?
My own discovery came through a dream. I must have been connected with the collective unconscious because it happened in the mid-70s, around the same time when people under hypnosis started to spontaneously wander off into other lifetimes. I had been in a Jungian analysis for 5 years and had learned to interpret my own dreams. I knew my archetypes, my inner figures, my symbols like the back of my hand. When one night, out of the blue, I had a totally different kind of dream. Dream is probably not the right word for it. A better word would be nightmare. It woke me up in the middle of the night in a state of shock and terror. In this dream, I was a man. I was standing with my back against the barn door of a medieval town somewhere in Europe, while an angry crowd from across the road was pelting me with stones. I was in agony and in great fear. When I couldn't stand it any longer, I said I had to urinate. So they let me step inside the barn so that I could relieve myself in private. I still remember taking my penis out of the pants. Then there was a blank. I must have fainted. Next, I was driven on a wooden cart pulled by 2 oxen through town. I had collapsed on the wagon floor, sobbing uncontrollably, while the jeering crowd was looking on. I was tormented by the complexity of feelings. On one hand, I was full of foreboding of something bad that was going to happen. On the other hand, I was in great shame because before the public mood had turned against me, I had been a celebrity in this town. I turned to the red-robed priest who was sitting beside me and asked, "My God, is it still like this?" And he said, "Yes, it is." I later identified the red-robed priest as a priest of the Inquisition. He must have taken me to an auto da fe, accused of heresy. The mob had gotten to me before the Inquisition did, and this must have certainly been my last journey.
Did you always believe in reincarnation?
No, not at all. Before I had this dream, I'd never given it any thought. I had so many problems in my present life that I didn't even think of other lives. But this dream really called for an explanation. And the only a plausible one that I could find was that these must have been memories from another lifetime. From this moment on, reincarnation was a given for me. I never questioned it after that. On the other hand, I never heard of past life dreams before, and the Jungian school did not provide any framework for it. So I really didn't know what to do with this dream.
I know that you later went to Zurich to train at the Jung Institute. Did you receive validation for the existence of past life dreams from any of your teachers there?
Yes, in the beginning I did. In my second semester, one of my teachers, Dr. Elisabeth Rüff, gave a public lecture series on past life dreams. In her first lecture, she explained to us how she came to be interested in past life dreams. Her interest had also been sparked by a dream, but by a dream of a different kind. Several years before, she had dreamt of Edgar Cayce, who had told her to pay attention to past life dreams. Since that time, she had collected a sufficient amount of evidence from her patients' dreams, in order to be able to distinguish typical features that are different in past life dreams. These were, if I remember it correctly, former centuries, foreign countries, and fashions from long ago. I was dreaming up a storm while this lecture series was going on, and every time I thought I had a past life dream, I would send it to Dr. Ruth through the mail. And without exception, she would use this dream in her next lecture as demonstration material. To me, this meant that my discovery of past life dreams had been validated by Jungian authority.
How did the Jung Institute respond to Dr. Ruth's cutting-edge exploration?
Oh, they were outraged. I had not been privy to the fact that Dr. Ruth, by giving this lecture series, was breaking a long-standing taboo. So, although her lectures were cautiously scientific and extremely well attended, they had very serious consequences for her. She subsequently became the target of professional ridicule or condemnation and never dared to mention past lives in public again. This left me, as her student, in a very vulnerable position. I could well imagine what would happen to me as a mere training candidate after what had happened to her as a senior training analyst. So I went underground with my process. I did this by separating my ordinary dreams from my past life dreams and taking only my ordinary dreams into analysis. With a dream recall of 4 dreams per night and only 1 analytical session per week, I always had plenty of dreams to keep my analysts satisfied.
Why did you not try to suppress this process, since it was putting your professional future at risk?
That would have been very difficult to do, because my unconscious was simply not cooperating. But my main reason for not doing so was a most unusual dream I had while I was trying to decide what to do. This dream gave me an understanding of what this process was about, and gave me a reason to pursue this with every fiber of my being, no matter what the worldly consequences would be. This was the most unusual dream I've ever had. It was the only time in my whole life where I was aware, while I was dreaming, that I was dreaming on different dream levels. From a very high place, a booming voice announced, "You are in your 4th incarnation." Although I thought it was God talking to me, I dared to question the truth of what he was saying. Nonsense, I said more to myself than to him. There were many, many more. In response to this blasphemy, I was taken to a somewhat lower level, where I was shown my past life container. It looked like a rectangular see-through plastic box divided into 4 sections. It was filled with a clear liquid in which hundreds of little sea creatures were swimming around. I was given to understand that these sea creatures were my past lives. I also understood what the voice had been referring to with talking about my 4th incarnation. It had been referring to this past life container, with the 4 sections, each representing hundreds of lives. Then the telepathic communication became a little more serious. It was conveyed to me that I was responsible for all my former lives, which was a bitter pill to swallow. And then I was given the task of opening up the past life container and transferring its content to a large round glass bowl where all these little life forms could be together. Even in the dream, I understood that the glass bowl represented wholeness, and that I had to become this glass bowl myself. When I later thought about the dream, I realized the full implications of it. If wholeness is the ultimate goal of the individuation process, as Jung originally conceived it to be, then the individuation process and the integration of my past lives was really one and the same. I could not betray one without betraying the other. And had I betrayed both, I would have missed the whole purpose of my life.
According to your book, you completed a major part of your integration process while you were still in Zurich, a process which may continue for the rest of your life. As an extension of your own inner work, you later developed past life integration as a subspecialty of your Jungian dream analysis. How helpful has this been for the clients you've worked with?
It has been truly life-changing for those clients who needed to do this integration work. 4 of these stories are in my book, Past Life Dream Work. A more recent one is posted on my website. This work has been particularly life-changing for those individuals who only needed to integrate one single past life. These single past lives, which take up an enormous amount of time and energy, are usually fraught with a lot of unconscious guilt. This guilt needs to be recognized, worked through, atoned for, and released before the person can get back into the flow. Some people may be surprised at the length and the complex nature of this work. Even on unconscious levels, the integrative process has to pass through 10 different layers of the auric field. And then at the same time, the conscious past life work needs to be done, which consists mainly of ongoing dream analysis and historical background research. It can take up to 5 years of weekly therapy sessions before such a difficult past life can be integrated.
Do you also do past life regressions?
In some cases I do, even though this is not the main focus of my work. I try to rely as much as I possibly can on spontaneous manifestations from the unconscious, either through dreams, flashbacks or visions. Because this way, the past life story remains free of hypnotic suggestions or ego manipulations. Unfortunately, whatever comes up directly from the unconscious is often fragmented and incomplete in some form. In those cases, I then have to take people back into the dream to retrieve some additional memories or to regress them to the past life in question. In order to do that, I don't use the usual hypnotic inductions, but I use a strobic colored light instrument which allows me to dial in the lower brainwave frequencies that bring about the required trance-like states. Especially the theta state, and when exposed to blue-green light, the client has much easier access to long forgotten memories. And as a special bonus of this modern technology, the strobic colored light removes or releases the cellular residues from the past lives from the body. The resulting energy shift can be quite dramatic.
Based on your 40 years of experience with past life work, what can you tell us about how the reincarnational process works? Are there any patterns to it that might be important for us to know?
Yes, I came across a number of such patterns in the course of my work. The most obvious one is probably that we reincarnate in opposites, which has, of course, karmic implications. If in one of my lifetimes I was a victimizer, I have to be a victim in another life. This is cosmic law. The Oversoul seems to explore the three-dimensional world from all possible angles in order to complete the gestalt of a particular line of interest it seems to pursue lifetime after lifetime. It would take too long to lay out these patterns before you in the limited time frame of a 30 minutes interview. For those who are interested in learning more about it, I recommend that they read my book, Past Life Dream Work, or come to one of my workshops. My latest workshop is built around a documentary which I produced in 2012. It is based on 3 interviews from 1984 with Jung's disciple, the late Erle von Waveren. It is entitled A Row of Tombs, Jung and Reincarnation. A trailer for this film can be found on YouTube, on Facebook, on LinkedIn, and also on my website.
How do Jung and von Waveren fit into your story? What makes them important for your work?
Jung and von Waveren validate my work because they traveled the same road less traveled as I did. Von Waveren is also an eyewitness to what went on in Jung's inner circle in the 50s. According to him, some of Jung's close associates and Jung were sharing their past life dreams with each other under the seal of secrecy.
Did you know von Waveren personally?
That would be overstating it. I only had one brief encounter with him in 1980 at the Jung Institute in Zurich. He was then already in his late 70s, but had a youthful, charming air about him. 3 years previously, he had published his memoirs under the title Pilgrimage of the Rebirth. I therefore felt comfortable sharing with him that I too had been inundated with past life dreams for the last several years.
What was special about von Waveren, apart from his having published a courageous book?
What set von Waveren apart from other Jungian analysts was that he had been in analysis with Jung himself for the last 10 years of the great man's life. Since their work had revolved mainly around his past life dreams of visions, von Waveren had first-hand knowledge what Jung really thought and knew about reincarnation. What he told von Waveren and some of his other close associates, and what he actually wrote and published, seemed to have been 2 different things. For instance, some statements he made in Memories, Dreams, Reflections seem to have been intentional misrepresentations, if not downright lies. He stated, for instance, that he had no evidence from his patient's material that any past life residues were present. When Jung claimed not to have found any evidence in his patient's dream material of past life residues, it must have been very disappointing to von Waveren after all the work they had done in this particular area. Although he complained about it in the interviews, he was more than willing to forgive a few white lies if they served to protect his mentor's professional reputation. More difficult for von Waveren must have been that Jung had made him promise not to tell anyone what they had discussed in his analytical sessions. He kept his promise to Jung for 16 years after Jung's death, when he disclosed in his memoirs not much more than the fact that they had been working on his past life material.
How was von Waveren's revelation received by the Jungian community? Did that create an outcry or a controversy?
None of the above. The Jungian method of choice when dealing with inconvenient truth has usually been to ignore it. Although my book was published 30 years later, it received the same silent treatment. In German we have a fitting word for that. It is called etwas totschweigen, to kill something by silence. Although von Waven's book was killed by silence in 1978, his rebellious spirit and his commitment to his own inner truth survived. He made a last attempt shortly before he died in 1984 in 3 filmed interviews to get his truth out. It was conducted by his trusted friend and a director of his foundation, the prominent New York lecturer, author and historian Olivier Bernier. Although the interviews were copyrighted, they remained in a raw, unfinished form and never saw the light of day.
How did you manage to get them out of the closet?
I had heard through the grapevine that von Waven, when he died, had left some filmed interviews behind. And through the mediation of a friend and colleague, I was able to obtain a copy of them. I happened to be the only Jungian analyst who was qualified and personally motivated enough to do something with this material. Therefore, it practically fell into my lap, and all the necessary permissions were instantly granted.
What are you hoping to achieve by drawing attention to this film by posting a trailer on YouTube and showing it in your workshops?
The film will make people realize that they're not alone or mentally deranged in having such dreams, that other people have them too, including Jung himself. But more importantly, it will hopefully clarify Jung's contradictory position on reincarnation once and for all.
Is that all you're trying to achieve?
Perhaps not. I have to admit there's still a glimmer of hope in the back of my mind that the Jungian school might recognize the golden opportunity that past life therapy offers to them. They could greatly enhance the quality of the past life work which is presently being done. Hypnotherapists do a great job bringing unconscious memories to the surface. They are also able to take some of the past life trauma out. But what they're not qualified to do is to help people integrate that material. As a rule, people are left to their own devices after past life regression. This can create confusion in people's mind regarding their own identity and leave their past life potential unexplored and undeveloped. Jungians would be ideally suited to take over the aftercare of these clients and help them integrate those dormant personality parts, because this is how past lives present themselves in the human psyche.
How do you see the future of past life therapy? It seems to be here to stay. What would you like to see happen?
I have a vision of a holistic approach to past life therapy, where hypnotherapists, body workers, and Jungian analysts would be working together to turn this into a life-changing, transformative experience for the client. The hypnotherapist would bring the past life material to the surface. The body workers would, using deep tissue massage, would help to release the past life residues from the cellular system. And Jungians would put the finishing touch to this work by helping the client integrate this material and bring it into balance with the conscious ego personality. But a holistic approach to past life therapy would require a spirit of cooperation between the different therapeutic schools, which presently doesn't exist. If past life therapy were to become holistic, sometime during the Aquarian Age. It could play an important role in the spiritual development of humanity. It could teach us tolerance, widen our mental horizon, and take some of us even to the next curve of the evolutionary spiral.